Good evening. Welcome to my Monday night live stream. I'm Kimberly Christian. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and on Monday night, I tackle important and sometimes really tough topics regarding mental health and faith, two of my favorite topics in the whole world. And I'm here to answer your questions. So I just got off of 5 weeks of a study. Hi, Electra. Thank you for joining us tonight. 5-week study regarding preventing suicide. And so if you were a part of that, so grateful you were a part of that conversation. It is not too late. I heard several people that are still, I guess, kind of confused maybe about how live sessions work. And so I might be sharing this with the wrong audience, but I'll just let you guys know it's never too late. If you can't make it, of course, that really makes this much more engaging and sometimes fun, depending on the topic, if we have people here that are posting things in the live chat. But if you're not able to because of the time or because of anything else going on with life, you can always, and I hope you do, go back and watch this. It's not just a one-time situation. So if you go back and look at my channel, there might be some topics that are of interest to you. I've covered a lot of things over the last several months that I've been doing this. And one thing seems to kind of lead to the next, which is what tonight's topic is going to be like. I'm here to answer questions of anything that you guys really want to hear me give my answer to. Of course, my answers are not always right. Hi, Pamela. Glad you're here with us tonight, too. Yay. I don't have all the answers at all, but I have been doing this a while. I've been a social worker for about 16 years. And been in private practice several times over. And all of that leads to a lot of experience. And I've been a Christian even longer than that, basically my whole life, or at least close to it. So I kind of understand Christianity too, and all the struggles that go along with that. But I just love taking those two topics. But what occurred to me this week, and also the reason why I created this channel, I want to empower and encourage you guys to think about your mental health from a biblical perspective. But I also really thought about why there probably are some people that would hear about what we do, and maybe you guys are telling your family members or friends or coworkers, and they're just not quite ready to take that leap of joining us and having their name show up. Speaking of names, hi, Joanne. I'm glad you're here tonight. And I realized, or maybe God just kind of like did one of these, on the side of my head. Like I'm taking on two topics that each are very, very difficult for people to talk about openly. They both require vulnerability. They both have a lot of judgment associated with them on either side. And here I am trying to take both of those things and bring them together in great, great harmony. So that's my way of saying I'm really proud of those of you that do make this like a weekly home chat where you join us. And even if all you say is hi, I know that you're engaging because I know that you're here and you're thinking about these topics. I hope that you're able to do so much more than just think. I want our conversations here to motivate you to do something with what we're talking about, whether it's making a change in your own life or you're sharing it because I know some of you're joining these sessions because of other people in your life. It may not necessarily be information that you need with your own mental health, but you support someone who's really struggling. Either way, you're going to get some really good information. Yeah, you see my little dog crossing the path behind me. We're just really going to pray that she doesn't make a stink about the fact that I hear people going in and out the front door because I'm in a live stream. I'm not going to get up and let her out, but just in case you guys hear that, that's what's going on. She can't make up her mind. So after 5 weeks, I think it was 5. Yeah, it was definitely maybe a total of like 6 weeks or 7 weeks time, but I covered 5 sessions of suicide prevention because September was National Suicide Prevention Month. And then in October the 10th, which was a Thursday, that was National Mental Health Day, or World Mental Health Day, excuse me. And so lots and lots of good information there. And I can't encourage you enough. I know that I've heard this from some people just because I listen to conversations everywhere that I go. And I can tell that some people think, I don't need that. Like, I'm thankful I haven't been touched by that. I don't need to listen to anything regarding that. And I just want to remind you guys, 1 out of every 10 families is impacted by suicide. Even if it's not death by suicide, it might be something serious self-harming issues. It could be the fact that that person, someone in their life, makes, consistent attempts of suicide on their life. Either way, that's what the closest ratio says right now. 1 out of every 10 families. So to me, my opinion is everybody needs this information. Yeah. Everybody needs this information. There is no one that doesn't need to hear everything that we talked about that I shared for the last 5 weeks, whether it was the symptomology, how do you practice before you get into crisis mode, the resources, all of it. It's all important. So, but what I was saying is, after 5 weeks of heavy, I really wanted to talk about something that is at least a little bit lighter, because everything is lighter than that topic. And so I'm willing to kind of like go wherever you guys need to tonight. I have something that I wanted to talk about, but if we have some of you that show up and you have questions, don't hesitate. At this point, I can certainly multitask and do both. So if you have a question about anything, it can be nothing related to what I'm talking about. That is completely fine. Just put it in the chat and I will address that. But here's what I had been thinking about, and I don't know how long we'll go tonight. This isn't as planned out and strategic as some of my previous sessions have been, but what's been on my mind a lot, and hopefully, or at least at some point, I know it's been on yours, because it's hard to miss this. The fact that all throughout history, we can look at people, famous people, not so famous people, just regular people, that are feeling that longing, that vacancy in their lives, that everything the world has to offer just cannot be enough. They can't be famous enough. They can't have enough money. They can't have enough popularity. And see, there is a bit of a bridge from what we talked about the last several weeks, because in some cases, more than any of us would ever like to admit happen, but people fall into patterns of addiction. People fall into all kinds of addiction, not just alcoholism. I'm talking about everything. So they fall into things like that. And then sometimes, those are some of the stories that we hear about in local news and nationwide news, that someone has died by suicide. And their story is like, oh my gosh, well, how is that even possible? Knowing that person had so much going for them, right? We've known many people in the last decade or more that completely fit that profile. And we're all looking at it from the outside, of course, because we don't know them personally, thinking, how could someone like that get to a place where they just thought there's no way out? I can't handle this life, or I can't change the way that I see myself. Any of those things that point to hopelessness. And so what I'm pulling from that, it has to do with last week's topic, of course, but what I'm pulling from that and talking about specifically now is, I'm curious for any of you guys to share your thoughts about, why do you think that is? I mean, this is a topic that brings both of those two worlds together, mental health and faith. Why do you think that as humans, everybody, like, there's no one that's immune to that? Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a single person, I know you can't either, that they don't struggle with that thought of, this isn't enough. This relationship is not enough. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough power. I don't have enough influence or authority, or whatever these external things are. Because that's something that is a huge commonality it unifies all of us, right? Do you think that that's by design? Do you think that that is the human condition? Do you think that that means that, something's kind of wrong with those folks? What do you think about that? Do you think about that? Do you notice that? Right? It might be something that's in your own family tree. It can be something that you're hearing about, like I'm mentioning on the news or in society. Okay, give me a second, you guys. This is very silly, but I have my family texting me. Sorry about this. Okay. All right. Yes, I was thinking of Robin Williams for sure. And Anthony Bourdain were those people for me. Robin Williams brought so much laughter and joy to others. Anthony Bourdain got to travel the world, which is my dream. I'm glad that you shared that. Yeah, it is. And those are two great examples of exactly what I'm talking about, that it's not something that we could ever really understand. But if we get into the weeds about the mental health piece of it, right, then our conversation sounds like the last 5 weeks, because we talk about depression and we talk about anxiety. Pamela's saying, yeah, she agrees. But what if we look at it from the faith perspective? I'm curious if that changes things for any of you guys, because we've already been there. We've already talked about this other side where there's so much clinical reasoning to this. Yeah. But adding the faith element to this, it obviously includes more than just those who have died by suicide, right? Because there are people living and breathing and struggling right now, and you might even be one of them. And you're thinking, gosh, I'm not experiencing suicidality. Thank God for that. I'm not. That's not what I'm dealing with right now. But I realize that it's never enough. It's never enough. I'm always chasing something. And maybe you're thinking of somebody else and you're wondering, I wish I could get into their head and understand, why are they struggling so much with this addiction? Why are they struggling so much with whatever this outside, substance? I'm using that word loosely because that can mean a lot of things. I still think it all points to the same thing. That's my bridge, is bringing all of these things together and saying it's the same conversation. And as believers, or people that might be finding this video, and maybe you're not a believer, but you're really curious about what it is that we're talking about, it's important for us to see that from a different perspective to gain clarity, right? Because if it's famous people, and if it's not famous people, and if it's rich people, and it's not so rich people, and it's people that have this kind of job and that kind of job, and they're male and they're female and they're this race or that race, or you see all these different variations, but yet that's the one thing that we all see, is that everybody struggles with, but that isn't enough. It's not enough to hold me up and to make me feel great every day. There's no amount of money that's ever going to make me feel that way. Maybe it's less chasing and more a hopelessness. Tell me more about that, Electra. I know it might take you a second to type in, but I like where you're going with that. Just tell me a little bit more so I can comment on that. Hopelessness is definitely a key factor in this, right? And that's what, you can probably see, hope is your future. That's the shirt I'm wearing tonight, because that is, in many ways, that's the motto of my new program, the Christian Method. Hope is your future. I have to say, I did not come up with this beautiful, precious soul that is my friend and my web designer. She came up with this as she and I were working on my brand. And we both, as soon as she shared that with me, it just, gosh, it hit me in such a place, because I think both of us were realizing that's it. That's it, because that's what people are missing. That's what they're needing. That's what they want promised to them. we live in this world where we just, whether it's real or distorted or whatever the label is, so many of us really feel as though things are not getting better, things are only getting worse, and we're just kind of gradually sinking, even though every generation has probably experienced this before, the same kind of feeling of, how bad are things really going to get? But hope is the key word. Everybody's looking for that. They don't know that they're looking for it. They think they're finding it in that next, whatever that thing is, that next hit, that next job deal, that next promotion, that next, second or third house, whatever it is, this new relationship. I think I'm reading a comment. I think everyone has something they want that thinks would make their life better. Yep. However, I think to get into a suicidal place, it's more than just that. Either you got that thing and it didn't help. Absolutely. That is exactly what I'm talking about. It doesn't always end in someone, falling into suicidal actions or behaviors. I think most suicidal thinking is the expectation that it's not going to get better. Yes, she's right. If you're reading the chat live, you see that she's absolutely right. That is something I talked about in the previous sessions in this past month. That is the thought. People are thinking, no matter what the situation is, whatever it looked like, what they're thinking is, this is not going to improve. And it can be, this is why I'm kind of excited about talking about this tonight, because in that case, sometimes it is like their own life, right? I've made this choice. I have messed things up in my family. I have, put us in financial risk, or I put my marriage in risk, or I've hurt my children in this way. Whatever it is can lead to that. But it also, we can get to that same place by just looking at the world around us and thinking it's not going to get better. But that's why this word is so important. Hope. We have to be able to find hope. Now in this, and I'm not even just saying it in this setting, but I'm saying this because I know most people that are following, content that I'm doing are Christians, or they're curious about it. There is only one real hope, and that's Jesus Christ. He is the only hope. So when I say hope is your future, and I'm talking about my program, I say that with great confidence because he is my program. He is through every single lesson. Everything is pointing back to, what does his word say? How is it that his word brings such clarity to our messed up thinking? Because it completely does. And what this viewer is saying about, everybody thinks that the very next thing is going to be the thing that makes their life better. We are chasing, she used a really good word earlier. We are chasing something else, chasing a new job, chasing a new relationship, chasing a new pay grade, a new house. And that is absolutely the human condition. But you know what also is the human condition is that in every single one of us, and that's why I say it affects, every possible scenario of a human, is that God is the only one that can fulfill that spot. And I know some of you might be thinking, but I have God in my life and I have still struggled with that. I can't debate that, but I will say this. In my own life, I've experienced this, and in the lives of some of my patients. When you get to a certain level in your relationship with the Lord, that looks completely different. That he's everything. He's what everything revolves around. He's the answer to everything. And every relationship pales in comparison to the one that you have with him. So therefore, what does that equal? You're not going to be afraid. You're not going to be afraid of being hurt or being, and I'm not talking about anything abusive. Please know that. But I'm not going to be afraid of being hurt or being let down, being disappointed, being betrayed. Because if I have him, that's all I need. And I don't mean that to sound cliche. I know people say that, but please hear me out. That's not where I'm coming from on this. I'm truly saying that he is the only hope. Whenever we're going through the hardest of times, any of us, Don't you know that that's what draws all of us? What we all have in common is that most people, when they're going through really difficult times, that's when they're accepting of prayers, or they're asking for prayers, or they're doing it themselves. Joanne says, I finally feel it's enough. I'm content with my life. However, I see a lot of improvement needed with myself within. My faith is good, but my performance with it needs improvement. I think she typed that even before I was saying it, but absolutely, right? You can be a believer your whole life. But do you ever ask yourself those really tough questions? You know, like the kind of questions a therapist would ask, like, I've been a believer my whole life, but what do I have to show for it? What fruit comes out of my life? Is he really everything to me? Am I completely sold out? Do I know that no matter how bad things get, he is still absolutely and fully in control of this? Do I know that he's the only solution to any of my problems? Even when I am the one that started it, I'm the one deserving of it. You guys, we were in such, and I say we, and that includes all of us before we were ever even born. We, as a society, as a world, we're in such turmoil and such difficulty. And some people knew that. A lot of us did not. Again, collectively speaking, universally speaking. And God bailed us out. He brought hope into the world by sending Jesus. And I hope you guys know the rest of that story. If you don't, I highly recommend the Bible. I highly recommend the Gospels in particular to read about the life of Jesus and the sacrifice that he made for us. We get to bring so much, if not all of that, into our mental health and our mental health journey and our mental health language and the skills that we use. His ways bring clarity to anything that we're dealing with. But it's also why you see so many people kind of walking around aimlessly, not understanding, like, by the world standards, I've got it all. I literally have it all. I was hearing somebody talk about this recently, and they were going through several like examples of famous people from all different times. And, you know, they didn't all have a lot in common except for the fact that they're famous. I'll say it that way. And by the world standards, we're talking looks, money, cars, popularity, lots, you know, movie deals, music deals, whatever their genre was. But yet they themselves, the celebrity, was found quoting something similar to what we're talking about tonight. Current tense, they were saying, I still feel unsatisfied. Why do I still feel like I'm looking? Why do I still feel incomplete? And I want to encourage you guys that are watching this, that you already hold that answer. You already know. But these people are coming at it, the examples that I heard today, they're coming at it from this place of they genuinely do not know. Or at least some of them, right? They do not know. Why am I still searching? Why am I still chasing? Even when I look back on my life and I realize it's never been enough. I never feel completely satisfied. And you know what I think about in talking about this concept, you know, is we learn so much, not only from opening God's word, but we learn so much when we're teaching somebody else. And for those of you that don't know this, I know a lot of you do. I have 3 children, and they are all homeschooled, but they all have kind of a different, they all have a different scenario. Like my older ones actually go to a school for homeschoolers, like a co-op. I don't feel perfection is attainable in this life. It's not attainable. She's absolutely right. We're just striving the best we can to do the best we can. So my youngest, who is a 2nd grader, is with me all the time, and I'm like his primary teacher. And we've just been going through some memory verses that are in the curriculum, and the 2 lately are right in line with this. One is in John, one is in Matthew, but it's Jesus calling himself the bread of life. the bread of life, that whoever seeks after me will never be hungry again. He will never thirst again. And the other verse is, I'm the light of the world. Right? There's these concepts that if we really understand and really remember that answers all of these questions. Why are people seeking? Because they haven't found the bread of life. Right? The living water. It doesn't mean that those of us that have are never going to have issues again. That's not what he's saying. It's that we are not going to struggle alone. We're not going to struggle without hope. We're not going to feel that emptiness that we did before him. I hope that is not only making sense to you. I hope that it's something that I hope it challenges all of us. Because just like Joanna is saying, perfection is not attainable in this life. We're never going to be perfect, and we're not God. We're not a deity. But we have the greatest model. And that needs to be one of our biggest goals. It needs to be the greatest goal that we have, that a lot of goals, operate around, which is I want to be more like him. I want to do things his way. I want to see life his way, because when I do, I feel better. I make better decisions. I like who I am more. Like I talked about in the last series, my relationship with myself and the value of my life is totally, totally different. That's because of him. We can call it all sorts of things, but it is because of him. When we see ourselves the way he does and what he satisfies deep inside of our soul and our spirit, it just changes things. It's what hope does. Pamela says, I think that more people are seeking Jesus because of the mess that our world is in. I do think you're right about that. But you know what that also seems to bring up? Again, another topic that I've been thinking a lot about is, I think that there are many, many more people, at least those of us that are alive now in the earth, are experiencing, is that people are in such need for hope. But what that brings up for a lot of us is our ability to confidently ask for help. It's hard. It is really hard to be in the state that so many things about this world are in right now, the things that we see, the things that are allowed, the ways people treat each other, just all of it. It's really hard to be in a place like that and to feel the way that you feel, and also to recognize that you aren't enough. You are not enough. I'm talking to you. That is very countercultural, isn't it? I mean, I just saw a shirt today pop up on my Instagram feed that said, "You are enough." I am sorry to have to share this with you guys, but you're not. And that's not a mark against your self-esteem or your self-worth, because I am a huge advocate for anyone that I have any influence over knowing your worth and your value and having a great esteem about yourself. But you are not enough. If we were, Jesus did not have to come. He did not have to come. He did not have to live a perfect life. He did not have to sacrifice his for us. Right? But when we have to get to that place of realizing, I don't know how to figure this out on my own, I'm not enough without having the help of somebody else, that requires a certain amount of us putting aside our pride and realizing it is okay. It is more than okay to say, I don't have this. I don't have all the resources. I don't have all the knowledge. I'm not an expert in every single field that there is. And I need to reach out to someone else who knows this better than I do. That takes a strong person. That takes a courageous person. And it takes a wise person. And I think that, like what Pamela was saying, I think that might be why we're seeing more of an acceptance about mental health now than, maybe even really just a few years ago. And I'm happy, I'm grateful for that. But it also means that we've got to be prepared. We have got to be prepared for those people that are going to be open and asking questions and wanting to ask you, why are you different? And why are you handling this situation? Why are you not letting this overwhelm you? Why are you okay when people are saying these things about the world or saying these things about our future? Why are you okay? We need to be able to give a reason for the hope that we have. Not preachy, not judgy. Just go back to the word, right? That's not you anyway. That's not you being judgy. You're not even the one that came up with that. I'm not the one that came up with that. But bringing people back to the true hope of Christ. Because I'm telling you guys, as a therapist, your mental health will radically and forever be different when you start incorporating your faith into it. It just changes it at such a deep level. Pamela, me too. It's conversations like this that allow more and more people to be okay with talking about suicidality, talking about depression, talking about anxiety, talking about coping strategies and self-esteem and codependency and substance abuse and all of these things. They've been around forever, since the beginning of time. We've made great strides in all of those things, but it's still part of the human condition. Romans 7:15, I think, is the verse I talked about in one of these live streams a couple of months ago, where Paul is talking about just the human condition, yes, but also the fight he's always in, knowing what's right and knowing what he's supposed to be doing, but seeing in himself, like my flesh, the sin nature that lives within me is always wanting me to do this thing. So the thing I want to do, I can't do. And the thing I don't want to do, I end up doing. What is up with that? That's my paraphrase of Romans 7:15, by the way, but it's not that far off. And we feel that way now. We still feel that way, right? We go to therapy because we cannot seem to tame whatever the situation is that we find ourselves in. And I think it helps. This is why I'm going back to, when you incorporate your faith into your mental health, into your therapy, it changes things, because all of a sudden you're connecting these dots that before you didn't know how to, or someone told you that you shouldn't, right? Don't be bringing that faith stuff into the therapy room. That didn't work. That didn't work for me. That didn't work for my practice. Did I miss anything? Joanne, sometimes I'm not okay, but fortunately I know the one who is, and I wouldn't be alive without him. That is so many people's story that are watching this. Wouldn't even be alive without him. And again, like she's saying, you may not be okay. No one is okay all the time. No one. But when you know your God, you know your Savior, you know that He is okay and that He is filling that spot, it changes everything. It has a ripple effect on everything. You don't look at any relationship the same. You don't look at any need the same, because you realize you can either keep searching and keep chasing and keep hustling for whatever this next thing is, and realize I'm always going to come back feeling the same way. I'm going to feel empty. I'm going to feel lonely. I'm going to feel disappointed, let down, frustrated. Or I can have a very different life on the outside, worldly view, but on the inside, I have joy. On the inside, because joy is it's not just a feeling of like elation. Joy is knowing. It's knowing the truth. That's how we're supposed to be recognized as believers, by the way. People need to be able to look at our lives and say, wow, that person has real joy. And they're not walking around with this goofy smile on their face all the time or laughing, although they might be. It's just not a necessity. What you're seeing in them, what you're recognizing is that under stress, under pressure, they're not fainting. They're not giving up. They're not giving in. They've got grit. They're saying, I will go forward no matter how tough it gets. I promise. Jesus had it tougher. If this betrayal hurts, if I'm afraid of being betrayed and being hurt, I absolutely know that Jesus would experience way more than what I'm experiencing right now. And he didn't even deserve it. Like I think I didn't deserve it. He really didn't deserve it. I've been thinking about this also, just speaking of betrayal, what Jesus must have experienced. All of us kind of take for granted the stories that we read in the Bible because a lot of us just kind of grow up knowing these things and knowing these characters. But I just started thinking about what did that really feel like for Jesus being fully human as well, to know that one of his close friends and followers would turn him in, would betray him. Like, let's use the word for what it is, betray him. And we know as humans, and I know as a therapist, because people come in a lot for situations like this, how that just wrecks a person. Like that one thing alone has brought people into therapy. I was betrayed by my spouse. I was betrayed by my boss, by my best friend, you name it, whatever the relationship was. And it hurts. It cuts so deep, that thing alone. And then we think about the fact that Jesus experienced betrayal, not just from Judas, but in some ways from other disciples, right? Because they left him alone. They turned their back on him. Even if they didn't turn him in, they turned their back when he really needed them. And then his own people did not agree with him, were threatened by him, were jealous of him. And yet that was like the tip of the iceberg for the pain, the excruciating pain, emotionally being mocked and ridiculed, and then all the physical torture. I know, may not be what you're looking for on a Monday night, but it fits, right? It fits into this because we need to feel known. We need to feel validated. We need to feel like someone gets us. And that's why all of those famous people, all of those people in that category, in that interview that I heard earlier today, were saying the same thing. Like, why do I always come back feeling so empty? Why am I feeling empty-handed? Why is it never enough? You see, we're all looking for the same thing. We're all looking to be accepted and to be validated and to be understood and to be heard. And we don't have to look very far. But the problem is, what if our pride doesn't let us? What if it keeps us from him, from accepting that he can give us everything? All we have to do is read his story. And I don't mean just the New Testament. I'm talking about the Old Testament. Sometime on here, I want to do an OT NT quiz. And I just want to throw some verses out there and see if you guys know if they came from old or new. Because I'm telling you, I'm realizing that some of us were probably schooled in a way that we thought, all of the Jesus stuff is in the New Testament. Anyway, it's just not true. And it's beautiful. But what was my point there? I got off track thinking about having a game that we need to be understood. And we don't have to look very far. We don't have to look very far at all. We can just look and read and know that it's the truth, that whatever we're experiencing, that's why he fits that God-sized, God-shaped hole in our lives like nobody else can, because he really does get it. He experienced those things, and yet he was fully man and fully God. And so we can take those things to him, and we can be fulfilled. We can hunger and thirst no more. And I hope that you guys understand what that means. I know I'm working off of very little here as far as assessing my audience. I don't know who's watching or who will watch, but just know that that concept of being the living water and the bread of life, it does not promise that it's taking away our issues and our problems and that we're immune to being hurt. But it means we're not going to keep doing this. We're not going to keep searching. We're not going to keep chasing all the wrong things and the wrong people, because he brings a sense of permanent fulfillment. And the only way we would start looking again is if we made that decision, that we bought into the lies of the enemy, just like the fruit in the garden, and thought, oh, I thought God knew what he was talking about, but obviously maybe he doesn't. Maybe it's this thing. Maybe I need to look elsewhere. That's right. The truth of Jesus will and does set us free. Yeah. You see, the funny thing about this is there are a lot of verses and concepts from our faith that many people have made very cliche and very cheesy. And I understand that. I certainly, I just get that. I'll say that. That's part of my upbringing too. But you know what? Try to like take that all aside for a second. Like put aside all the things of like, oh, it just, it sounds so hokey to say whatever you grew up listening to, and just realize what the actual verse itself, what it actually says, because you need to be clear on the authenticity of it, and then realize that is true. That really happened. These are not just words. This is a living, breathing word, something that we don't know. We've never written anything like that, right? But the word of God is fully inspired. If it's not directly from God, it's inspired by God. And it's something that we have a different experience in when we're reading it. It fulfills us in a way that nothing else does. So, how does all of that tie into your daily management of your mental health? I'll start with where I just left off. Having a daily discipline of being in his word so that you actually know what the word is. It is the greatest defense that you're going to have against the world and against the God of this world, the enemy, lowercase g, God of this world. Our greatest defense we're going to have is knowing what God's word says. Right? Because again, go back. We have so much to learn from the garden. Go back to that. And if Adam and Eve would have been able to just really stand on, no, this is what God said, and I choose to believe him. This is what he said, and this is what he meant. But the problem is we don't know what the word says, and so it's easy for someone else to kind of distort that for us or to us. Or we're just not sold out on it ourselves. We might know what it says, but we don't know how to use it, or we don't know what it means. We've never really accepted that God is found in those 66 books. He reveals himself over and over and over. And so having a daily discipline of getting to know this greatest defense of all of the things that you want in this life, your hope is satisfied. Your joy is satisfied. Your greatest, not accountability, your greatest, I'm drawing a blank here and I just said this. Advocate, your greatest advocate, but also your greatest defender, the greatest validator, right? Is all found in knowing him, but you're not going to get there without knowing him. So, daily discipline, and it can be found in many ways. This is where those of you that follow and know how much I love CBT, and maybe you're starting to love it yourself as much, this is where you can find yourself either getting caught in the all or nothing thinking part of it or not, because there can be gray area. You do not have to look at it like, well, if I don't get my 30 minutes in of my daily devotion every day, well, then I'm a bad Christian. That's black or white thinking. That's legalistic thinking. You can look at it like, I didn't get 30 minutes today. I got 15 minutes and I didn't read the Bible. I read Jesus Calling instead. Or I spent time in prayer, or I was, listening to worship music. The point is, you are giving him first dibs on your life. Remember, greatest commandment, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. It's the greatest thing he wants for us is to put him first. How else does this pertain to your mental health? Anybody know? Anybody have any ideas? Not just giving him your time, giving him your talent, asking him to help you develop your talent because he gave it to you. And so what happens when you start to develop your talent? I was just talking with my 8-year-old about this yesterday. He's just so precious, but he's my child that he's really not shy when you actually know him. He's not at all, but he's very reserved. He doesn't just jump out there and just try things and a big risk taker. My daughter is a big risk taker. But he just recently realized he really likes basketball and he's really good at it. And he keeps saying to me over and over, Mommy, I just didn't realize that I was going to be good at basketball. And he said it probably 10 times in 24 hours. And he knew he had my attention. But finally, I sat him down. We were outside and I said, that's what happens when you try new things. When you try new things, you sometimes realize that you're really good at it. It develops your self-esteem. It develops your self-esteem when you start developing these habits and these talents that God put in you. That's how it's connected to your mental health. Give him your time. Give him your talent. Those are important things. Joanne says, my thoughts are just much clearer if I start the day with Jesus and ask for direction and clarity. Yeah, because he brings those two things so perfectly. Right? I heard somebody, I think it might have been at my church, and this is a long time ago, but I just loved this. This person was saying that they start every single morning the same way, which is another really great mental health technique, is that you're very routine about your morning and about your night. This person was saying that whenever he wakes up, he always starts the day in kind of a prayer mode or a praise mode. And he will say, Lord, how do you want me to spend my day today? How do you want me to serve my family? How do you want me to serve your kingdom? How do you want to use me today? And I think he might have said my wife, like specifically, like my family at large, my wife, and your kingdom. And that prayer that he decided to make a daily routine has completely changed his life, he said, because of what Joanna's saying here. Direction and clarity. He didn't go into the day with like this kind of approach of like, the day's already gotten a hold of me and I don't know what I'm going to be doing today. Like Jesus became his daily planner, right? He just had to open up God's word or open up his heart to prayer and just ask those three things. Lord, how do you want to use me and my family to serve my wife and to serve your kingdom? And so because of that, and this is the CBT piece to this, he was always looking for those opportunities because that was on his mind. There was nothing mystical or magical about it. He was just looking for those opportunities because he was already expectant that God had an agenda for him. And so he was more attuned to hear his wife expressing something that maybe she really needed help with. And instead of being kind of, tone deaf to whatever was going on, he heard that and thought, okay, I'm on it. Right? He'd hear opportunities differently in the world. And so I think that inspired me. I can't say that I do that every single day, but I do love that idea. And I think it is wonderful. And it's something that any of us can take on. But being routine in your day it's just huge. for mental health reasons. And so I highly encourage that anyway. We're the most routine in the morning and in the evening. In the middle of the day, that's kind of the fluid part of the day where we just kind of we go with our appointments might change. It's just not as like black and white. The gray area of our day is somewhere between like noon and 4-ish, 4:30. But my message and my plea with all of you guys tonight, there's several different things that we've talked about, but I want you to see how they're all connected together. Okay? You are not alone. You are not unique in feeling unsatisfied about this life. So yes, Jesus is the only one that can fulfill that hole and make us feel complete and make us feel accepted and understood and validated for all the things that we do that nobody else sees. He does do those things, and he does it perfectly. But we are also all going to feel unsatisfied to some level because this is not our permanent home, right? It's like we have our homes and we have our stuff and we have all of our comforts and we just kind of like, we set up camp here. Like this is our life. But don't you every once in a while just kind of have that thought that crosses your mind? And it doesn't need to be a hopeless thought. In fact, I hope it's the opposite. But the thought of, this isn't it. This isn't it. And it's not that it doesn't matter because it isn't it, but it kind of explains why sometimes we just feel so, I can't think of a different word than what I've already used, but just longing, that we long for more, but not in a negative way or a selfish way. We long for more because he has more for us. He has more for us that he died to give us, to restore back to us our relationship with him, sharing space with him, reigning with him forever. We get that back. That's awesome news. It's the greatest news. And we need to start, I say we because this is for all of us. We need to start really realizing the power that is found in being a Christian, in being a faithful follower of Christ. He is the King. He is the Lord of Lords. There's no one greater than him. There's no one higher than him. And we serve him. And so we can hold our heads high and we can have so much to be expectant of. And when we know him every single day, no matter what comes at us, we really can tell ourselves, we're going to get through this. There's nothing he can't relate to or he doesn't understand. And there's nothing that he does not know how to bring me through. If I see anything consistently in my social media feed, especially because of the things I look at, people are constantly saying, if I only had Jesus, that would be enough, because he's the only one that comforts me this way. He's the only one that can bring peace to these tough situations that I'm dealing with. There's no right word from my spouse. There is no great counsel or great skill that my therapist can give me. There's no amount of sessions that's going to, uplift me in that particular way. It's only through him. And anyone that has had a moment like that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. God has this amazing way. There's like 8+ billion people in the world. And I know that not all of them are Christians. I understand that. But we've all been created by him, right? God has this way of, when we engage with him at that level and coming at it from that place of, you are king of the world. You are the Lord of heaven and earth. You are our creator. You are our savior. Like, you're everything. You can absolutely help me get through whatever this is I'm dealing with. And we ask for help and we put our pride aside and we know that he holds all of the answers and all the resources, even here on earth, to direct our paths to, that we feel like we're his only child. He has this way of allowing us to feel so special and so loved and so unique. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where you don't feel like you're sharing that time with somebody else. You don't feel like he's just, trying to rush you because he's got to get on to the next thing. He's a perfect parent. And I know some of you a little bit off of the topic tonight, but I know some of you need to hear that. Your earthly father or mother, they didn't mirror what I'm talking about. They didn't. They didn't love you the way that you deserve to be loved. They didn't nurture you. They didn't give you that kind of undivided time. They didn't cherish you. They didn't speak life into you about how special and what a gift you are and all the amazing things that God has in store for you. And you might be 30, you might be 60. But I want you to know this is something that God wants his people to know. He is a perfect father. He is your heavenly Father. And wherever they left off and wherever they fell short, he more than makes up for that. You just need to go to him. You just need to go to him and let him speak over you, why he created you. He doesn't make any mistakes. Okay? He doesn't make any mistakes about you being here and you looking the way that you look. And even a lot of the personality traits that you have, that was by his design. So go to him. Let him love on you that way. Let him reparent you, is what we call that in the therapy world. Because he's the true parent. And you're never too old to have that kind of experience where you go to him and let him speak those things over your life, and it kind of washes away all of the erroneous parenting that you had, that you did not deserve. What you do deserve and more comes from him every day. Perfect love, unconditional love, saving love, sacrificial love. Are there any other thoughts or questions tonight? With anybody who is still here with me, anything that you wanted to share? I am still very open to suggestions. I covering the series on preventing suicide. That's the first time I've done a series on YouTube. I do series all the time with my patients in my practice, in my groups. But I'm still open to that in this format. If any of you guys are just really wanting to hear more of something, I can't promise, but I would love to hear it. Joanne, thank you for sharing that. I'm encouraged to do better. I really am. This has been just as encouraging and convicting for me to hear this, because I might know a lot of the right things to say. And God gave me absolutely this gift. There's no other explanation for it, where I can pair psychology and faith the way that I do. But I'm telling you, from one human to another, this is really hard to do. This is really hard to live like this. I'm not the kind of parent that I'm talking about that God is. I'm human. But I know what I'm telling you is true. That if you approach him and you let him love you that way, you will really feel like you're the only thing in the whole world that matters to him. And that's priceless. Okay. Thank you, Pamela. She says, I would love to hear more about how God parents us. Oh, that's such a good topic. Okay. I will remember that. And like I said, especially if it turns into like a series, it might be something that I have to put off a little bit so that I can kind of prepare more for that. But I'm wanting to meet you guys where you're at. I certainly don't want to just talk about a topic just for the sake of talking about it. If it meets those of you that are here and that are engaged and you want to hear about it, share that with me. You can, I say this most weeks, please watch this again after the live stream and comment and share it on your pages. Do all those things that we probably get so annoyed when people say like and subscribe and all that, until you realize it really matters. You realize it absolutely pushes this in front of other people that are searching. So even if you're here, comment on how this helped you. Comment on, like Pam is saying, something I'd like to hear more about. And if you think of something later, do the same. But just so you guys know, this shirt that I'm wearing at the very, can you see at the bottom? It says the Christian Method. I am working right now to get shirts like this, maybe in different colors, on my website, because it's connected to my program. So if you see this and you're like, oh, where did she get that? Well, I designed it with my web designer, and I'm trying to get it available because, again, this is what people are looking for. And it is going to be a massive conversation starter when you're going out into your community and people are like, hope is your future. What do you mean? And on the back of my shirt, it has my logo, which is the cross with the semicolon symbol. So I would love to get these in your hands and allow you to be sharing that with people in your community and stopping you and asking you, what is up with that? There's lots of good resources, and they're not just mine. There's lots of good resources in this world that are drawing people to the truth. So with that being said, God bless you guys. May he watch over you and keep you safe and keep you healthy and keep you encouraged and wise in your decision making and sharp in your skills. I pray these things over your life tonight and walking into the rest of this week. I thank you so much for your time and dedication, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.